Hello and good morning. I've got a Rubidium Frequency Standard. It just arrived yesterday and at about midnight I was testing it out. So I'm going to do the startup procedure on this. So essentially it takes 15 volts DC and needs about little under 2 amps to start up. It gets really warm. It draws about 25 watts essentially. And just before I start things up, to show you here, the green, so channel 2 in green is essentially the 10 megahertz sine wave output from the GPSDO or GPS discipline oscillator. I'm playing on his back, but I don't have a cable yet, so later I will, to plug into the SMA connector. Then I can have it in the correct orientation. These two ports here, the two BNC ports here, are the 10 megahertz as a TTL signal, but that doesn't really play nicely with the XY plot I got here. So in the yellow trace, channel 1 is going to really be the signal from the Rubidium oscillator. And over here I've got a DMM set up on the output pin for the lock LED. And it basically starts off at about 4 volts, and it basically goes low, so you can sync current when the Rubidium physics package has locked on 10 megahertz. And I've also got the statistics set up where I'm looking at, if you see, look at statistics line 1, it's basically measuring the delay of C1 versus C2 and C2 versus C1. Right now it's just giving random values, but nothing. C1 is not, it's floating, right? So that'll be working shortly. And what I will first do is I've got these wires going around here, unfortunately, but we'll have to work with this. You will notice essentially how the initial current draw is pretty high. So I'm just going to keep the screen focused on the power supply while I turn the output on, and immediately we can see the draw at 1.8 amps, right? And I want to also show you that voltage there and how the frequency on the yellow line is ramping up considerably. It essentially goes high and then it goes low and then it locks. So it hasn't locked yet. The yellow wave, when it slows down, it'll lock. No, still not. Let's just keep an eye on this. Yeah, it's going to take a while because it has a fairly. It takes a while to heat up, essentially. I found that it starts to lock once the current draw drops to around 800 odd milliamps, and that by that time the unit starts to only pull around 11 watts. Yeah, it's still not hot enough yet. Yep, not hot enough. I can just like, as you can see, this is just still sweeping. A bit crazy. We still do not have a lock. Ideally, what we want is to make some space here and just move this DMM over there, but I don't think I'm going to do that. Okay, so it's getting. So the greatest amount of heat is around here and on the reverse side as well. So we have a lock. So it's just locked. Oh, and you can see things have stabilized a bit. It's the creep on the top trace it's coming to a standstill, and Alright, so now what I can do, I can reset the stats essentially. There we go. Reset the statistics. We have a standard deviation of 6 nanoseconds, which is oh, okay. As I was just talking about it, just jumped up. Yeah, no, the mean is down much less. It's still stabilizing, even though it says lock, right? It's still stabilizing. And up here down we can see, right? Take a look here how the current draw should rapidly drop, and it is. Let's wait till it gets well below 900 milliamps. Oh, it's doing it very fast at this moment. Look at that. Oh. Now it's getting to a stable point. Okay, here we go. I think that's a fair point. Yeah, it's fairly warm now. It's not super warm, but it's warm enough. And we can see from here again now. Look at that standard deviation. It's under 5 nanoseconds. Now, unfortunately, I do not have a frequency counter, which is sad and unfortunate at the moment, but I have ordered one. It's an old unit. It's an HP, whatever. I'll share the model number once it arrives. Yes, look at that, standard deviation of about 2 nanoseconds, which isn't too bad actually. And so we can see that there is a decent lock between the Rubidium 10 megahertz frequency and the frequency from the GPSDO. Now, ideally, we'd want to add a third source of truth, right, to be the tiebreaker between these two, and that can easily be done with another GPSDO. And yes, going back to the frequency counter. The frequency counter will also provide further indication to how accurate the signal is. Because right now this oscilloscope, it only goes down like 5 decimal places. So in that sense, there isn't enough resolution to determine that. But we can see here how. What's surprising is how much it's oscillating. Like the standard deviation on channel 1 is in 5 kilohertz compared to the satellite input is 12 kilohertz. That is way higher than expected. The reason being is the seller has tested this, and details he's provided shows. Let me just share this with you quickly now. So we've got the pinout right on the connector, the D sub connector at the back, and he's showing here standard deviation, and that's 10 to the minus. So that's 128 samples at 10 to the minus 13. And 10 to the minus 12, the Allen deviation, and that is very, very low. And so I would probably see this on the frequency counter, hopefully, which is harder to determine on the scope. But what the scope just helped with the XY plot is I can get a really good idea of how the delay between the rubidium standard and the GPS signal. So like for example here, current readings in the under 5 nanoseconds between them, which is yeah, fantastic. Yeah, right. So there you have it. Oh, and here's this quick update here. It's still creeping down. It's getting to 13 watts. The longer I leave it, it'll. Oh, now it's toasty. Now it's toasty. It's painful to just keep my hand. Oh, yeah, it's painful to keep my hand longer than that. Oof. Yeah, it's toasty. You can keep something, if you want to keep something nice and warm, you can just keep it over here and it'll. Yeah. Oi. Okay. And that's my latest update so far. Thanks for watching. Cheers.